Welcome, big gits and cave shamans, to the slumbering depths of the mortal realms, because today we are talking all about the Gloomspite Gitz, now that they finally have a 4th edition battletome. I took a little break on this because it was a lot to go straight from the Orc War Clans into this, but I really am excited for what they actually added to the army in this edition, in this battletome. And for all the armies I can, I always plan to do a 4th edition reboot of their lore series because Games Workshop has added so much since I did some of those initial ones. And so today we're going to be cracking the top off of this faction, exploring its origins, the sub-factions, its motivations, and so on. And so I encourage you to click subscribe if you don't want to miss any of it. And when I reach like 5 or 6 videos, I'll make a compilation for other folks who like the more long-form stuff, which has been quite popular lately. Thank you so much for your kind words. So with that said, let's talk about this. If you are new to the game, who the heck are the Gloomspite Gitz? Because it's a strange name. Well, the Gloomspite Gitz are the teeming masses, generally, of goblins, or grots as GW calls them, that lurk in the underbelly of every single realm in its nooks and crannies. They have existed since the Age of Myth, and while they have not technologically evolved much in that time, they have survived and even thrived in that time, and that's despite all of these setting-wide, sweeping events that we've had going on. They employ the use of endless hordes of grots, giant trolls or troggoths, as well as a menagerie of other creatures from various environments that are pressed into service. All of that together gives them one of the most formidable toolboxes of an army. There's a lot of ways that this army expresses itself. So I have a lot of entries in their army, a lot of great looking miniatures. It's a fantastic thing to collect. But I think to properly discuss this huge faction with a lot of model diversity as well as design, diversity in terms of how things function on the table, we need to start up in the sky. Because a foundational part of understanding the Gloomspite Gitz story and their motivations requires you to understand at least a little bit about an object called the Bad Moon. This is a celestial, I say object, but there is sort of a personality to it, that hurls itself around the mortal realms, circling them, changing course and speed hour by hour. Essentially, think of it as a small moon. And then from the ground, if you're looking up, you would just kind of see it come over the horizon like our moon does. And it's really, really close to the ground, and in the moon you can see a giant grinning face. It looks like a giant grot looking down on you and grinning. Now, a ton of motivations for armies of Gloomspite Gitz is to either try and get the Bad Moon's attention or capitalize on its presence. Because the presence of the Bad Moon has a deeply tangible effect. Okay, so let's kind of put ourselves in the position of like being on the ground. As it approaches, people will get racked with nightmares. The sun will blot out as the moon rises. People go insane. Fungal growths begin to like spontaneously erupt from everything from people to rocks. There's a meteor shower of lunar debris that are raining down on people, and when they hit the ground, it causes like spontaneous fungal explosions. Like life, it just erupts from wherever they hit, is what I mean. And this is the moment that a Gloomspite Gitz army strikes. Not just because you're off kilter, although that is part of it, right? That's kind of the backstabby, wait until they're not ready for it kind of mentality of the grots, but also because they're performing for their heavenly passerby, right? The Bad Moon will seem to slow and hover over an area if you can keep its attention. In fact, if you want to read a grisly and an entertaining account of what it is like from the human defender perspective, Gloomspite by Andy Clark is a killer read. It's called Gloomspite. It's like I said, exclusively from the human side. You're on the receiving end, but it tells such a story about the Gloomspite Gitz by showing it is what it's to be like on the receiving end. So it's incredible. As the moon hits its zenith, or at least whatever trajectory it's on, grots will disregard their natural cowardice and attack in essentially one living wave of black and green. Squigs that are normally jumpy creatures, they can kind of bounce around. They'll jump all of a sudden twice as high when the Bad Moon's up there, going over walls. Behemoth spiders will tear up from underground. Traga seem magnified by their power. or by its power rather. And so it's like when the bad moon comes over, it's like the earth is just vomiting up all the bad things that it's been hiding underground at you at once, while the sky is falling down as if the two were trying to meet in the middle. The entire time that this is happening, you'll hear tens of thousands of voices laughing at you, goading you in just your darkest hour. Little red devilish eyes and greens are peering at you without pity. It's terrible. And so the Bad Moon has become a fixed part of the Moon Clan and really the greater Gloomspite Gitz mythos. Various clans incorporating it into their origins and in different ways that tie to their themes. We'll see later on in the week that the Spider Fang revere it as a giant like spider egg that one day will crack open and the like Arachnarok itself, like the event will come and everything's going to be eaten by spiders. Others may see it as a manifestation of Gorka Morka. Some don't really care or question what it is, they just want it to be around, so they just kind of experiment and try to think as critically as they can about it. My point is there's no consensus. And what's great about this book is that there's a lot of like little like research notes in the side margins of like Hishian scholars are like have no idea. So I love the idea that the core of the actual battletome is they don't really understand and nobody really cares from the Git side, and then for everybody else they also don't understand but they care immensely. It's really entertaining. Now, one concept that existed before this battletome but was really fleshed out in this book, I think, is the personification of Hish. That is, the realm of Hish, which is the realm of light, acts as the sun for the rest of the mortal realms. If you're not familiar, it's kind of like a Discworld setting, and so Hish illuminates everything else. And the Gloomspite Gitz, who generally hate the sun, emphasis on the word generally, call this other object in the sky Glareface Git. Because every god needs a devil, every yin needs a yang, and so too does the bad moon have its antithesis, the sun. It's old Glareface that burns the eyes of most grots, that illuminates the battlefield, making it so dangerous for such tiny and diminutive creatures as them to be out and about. Now, in the past battletomes, Glareface was like casually introduced, but was really more of like a boogeyman to scare grots. Like there was one miniature they added that had like a big Glareface Git mask, and he was supposed to like spook the other grots into going the right way into battle, like a boogeyman commissar. So it existed, but I feel like this new battletome, we've really seen this idea leaned into in the form primarily of the Git mob units, who don't worship the sun, but they revere it as a heavy part of their mythos and theology, so they want to respect and understand it. If we're taking this to a real life religion level, think priests who are demonologists kind of a thing, right? You want to understand the enemy. Even if it's everything you hate, it can be used to tangibly prove your belief structure, so surely it's worth exploring, if it's as real as we all say it is. That kind of logic. Now, one way to bring this reverence to the night is with Realmstone. Some grots in their travels have found shards of Realmstone from Hish, so they're talking about literal light. So what they'll do is tie it to the end of their spears, essentially weaponizing their fear. Right? Bruce Wayne falls in a well full of bats and becomes Batman, so too they are afraid of the sun and decided to make it everybody else's problem. And I know I'm using a lot of other pop media references here to describe this, but it is a very natural extension that I don't feel conflict with anything to say that they're just exploring different parts of their belief structure and do so in comical, goblin-esque ways. So that's what I'm getting at. It's essentially a cult of the sun in a faction that hates the sun. And this naturally makes a lot of the grot leaders uneasy. However, the Git mob units have made themselves so useful to have around in battle that they are just good to have around, even if you don't like them. For any aspiring boss that wants to, rise the ranks and kind of climb up the hierarchy of their little faction, it's good to have some of these guys in the pocket. And so those two characters, I guess, kind of in their mythos, really stand as the cultural touchstones of the faction, right? Every Gloomspite Git mob or scrap or army, whatever term you want to use, out there will have some opinion on the Bad Moon or Glareface Git. What those opinions are is up to you as a writer or a hobbyist, but there are some really compelling trends that form based off of, I guess, these touchstones, no matter how you kind of disseminate them. As we already mentioned, a lot of the goals of Gloomspite Gitz armies involve trying to get the attention of the Bad Moon, and that's true. It's also true that predicting the Bad Moon, or even, we'll say, tricking Grots into thinking that you predicted the Bad Moon, is a fantastic way to rise through the ranks of power within the clan. Essentially using this belief as a shortcut to authority. Now, if you're wrong, if you make a prediction that doesn't pan out, you'll get smacked around, but there are worse fates. But that becomes a device on how characters rise and fall. But these stories and kind of this, I guess, focusing of their worldview regarding the sun and the Bad Moon, they work to curate a very interesting species within the mortal realms, because Grots are wonderfully adaptable, which is, in my opinion, why they have such a massive army list, because each unit is essentially representing a way that the Grots have adapted to survive in their environment, which is a direct result of how they feel about the sun and how they try to capitalize on the Bad Moon. Most of them, at least numerically, went underground, right, away from the larger creatures, or would eat them, or orcs that would bully them. This was just open real estate in the mortal realms, and there, the environment is dark, where we're talking fungal infested caves full of its own flora and fauna. Namely, this is the origin of squigs, the bouncy monsters that the Moon Clans use as mounts and attack herds. They brew potions and farm food from the various flora that has developed within this environment. They move in large groups to repel predators, like almost a pack of fish kind of keep together. Some of these Grots went into the forests of the realms instead of underground, and the sun blocking and impenetrable forests they adapted to were full of spiders. So they found a way to bring spiders into their mythos regarding the sun and the Bad Moon. The Troggoths represent an entire third leg of this faction, are just creatures they found in the wild and prod towards food or entertainment. And all of this, right, all of it, the weapons, the tactics, the logic, the different creatures they find impressed into service, some even breeding of animals to create specific tools and tasks, all of it's based on how the Grots are able to respond to their environment, which is selected based on their view and tolerance of the Bad Moon and Glareface Frazzlegit. And so I want to end this video like I end all of them, simply by asking, why is this cool? The Gloomspite Gitz are a fantastic army for us as hobbyists because, one, there's so much room for you to write your own story. They have a few named characters, but I mean, you don't need them. There's so much room here to write your own story out, to create your own scrap, how they feel about the Bad Moon, how they feel about the sun, the units that they would employ then of, the vibrant nature of the fantasy, realms within Age of Sigmar make it so that you can craft just a lot of different color patterns, army styles, anything. This is just such a toolbox army for both hobbyists and gamers. I like that they've added Glareface Frazzlegit, the sun, as more of a character within their mythos, that there is a more prominent presence just besides the Bad Moon. Certainly if they ever plan to expand the Git Mob stuff, it's nice to have that narrative toehold into they kind of perceive this as a drama going off in the sky, and they come to root for their boy whenever the Bad Moon's around. Now, that's from their perspective. To anyone who's on the ground, it's like a horrific apocalypse. But they just have their own thing going on, and that's why they've survived. If you notice, this grand mythos regarding the Bad Moon and the thing that affects their everyday life has absolutely nothing to do with the Age of Chaos, nothing to do with Nagash making his big power play, or the era of the beast, or any, nobody cares. End of the world, hour of ruin, blah, 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 I don't care. Where's the Bad Moon today? That's all they care about, and I adore that. They do a great job of mixing the entertaining, kind of lighthearted nature of not just these ridiculous fantasy properties, let's be honest, with this would be really scary if you saw it in real life kind of a thing. They have this nice dark comedy aspect to them. That's always been there. Games Workshop has done that with all of their orc variants across all their different properties, which makes it peak ridiculous, but I just enjoy every bit of it. And you can write up a fun story with quick motivations for your game by simply asking, how do you guys feel about the sun and the moon? That's really cool. I love when factions have little story hooks like that, very simple things. Again, touchstones for their kind of cultural memory. They're all going to have a feeling about this. So anyway, those are my thoughts. If you are a Gloomspite Gitz player, please let me know in the comments down below. How do you feel about the introduction of Glareface a bit more? Personally, I love it. The first time I remember hearing about it was when it was the mask character from the Gabapalooza, I think, box it was, if I'm not mistaken. It might be an old world thing, like maybe it's just a name they pulled. I would have no idea. But if you do know more about Glareface than what was in this book, please leave the comments. I always pin helpful stuff to the top. Let me know your thoughts on the new 4th edition battletome, and I'll catch you in my next video. Happy wargaming, friends!